In 2023, Red Lobster made one of the most famous business blunders of the decade. They offered all-you-can-eat shrimp for $20, forever. And people did exactly what you'd expect. They ate, and ate, and ate. Within months, that one promotion had cost the company $11 million, and a 56-year-old American icon was heading for bankruptcy court. That's the version you've heard. Greedy diners, a dumb deal. The end. But that's not really what happened. The shrimp didn't kill Red Lobster. The shrimp was just the evidence. The real culprit had been hiding in plain sight for almost a decade, buried in who actually owned the company. To understand how it fell, you have to understand how big it once was. Red Lobster basically invented casual seafood dining in America. The Cheddar Bay biscuits, popcorn shrimp. And yes, that endless shrimp deal, which ran as a limited-time promotion for nearly 2 decades without a single problem. At its peak, it was the largest seafood restaurant chain in the world, with around 700 locations. So how does a brand that size, with that much loyalty, end up bankrupt? It starts where a surprising number of corporate collapses start. Not with the food, with the real estate. In 2014, Red Lobster's parent company sold the chain to a private equity firm called Golden Gate Capital for $2.1 billion. And the new owners pulled a move that looks brilliant on a spreadsheet and quietly wrecks a business in real life. Here's what they did. Red Lobster owned the land and buildings under most of its restaurants, valuable, stable assets. The new owners sold all of that property off, about $1.5 billion worth, and handed much of the cash to their own investors. Then they signed Red Lobster up to rent back the very buildings it used to own. Think about what that does. Overnight, an asset becomes a bill. By 2023, Red Lobster was paying around $190 million a year in rent, and more than $60 million of that was for restaurants that were already losing money. For a restaurant, rent eating up nearly 10% of sales is a slow death sentence. Before a single shrimp hit a single plate, the company was already fragile. Now, the second mistake, and this is the big one. Enter Thai Union, a giant seafood company based in Thailand, the name behind Chicken of the Sea. They'd supplied Red Lobster for decades. In 2016, they bought a $575 million stake in the chain. And in 2020, they led the investor group that bought Red Lobster outright, becoming its single biggest shareholder. So sit with that for a second. Red Lobster's biggest owner was now also its biggest supplier. That's a textbook conflict of interest. Because what's good for the supplier, selling more product at higher prices, isn't necessarily good for the restaurant. And according to Red Lobster's own bankruptcy filing, that's exactly how it played out. The company says it dropped 2 of its other suppliers, Thai Union's competitors, and moved that business to Thai Union at a higher cost, under what the filing calls the guise of a quality review. The filing accused Thai Union of exerting an outsized influence over what the chain bought. Other managers pushed back. They were overruled. Thai Union, for its part, has called the accusations meritless. Which finally brings us back to the shrimp. Endless Shrimp had worked for almost 20 years, as a limited deal. The logic is simple. You lose a little on the offer itself, but it floods the restaurant with customers who also buy drinks, sides, and dessert. You make it back. The key word is limited. In 2023, the company's leadership made the $20 all-you-can-eat version permanent. And the math fell apart. Red Lobster's own leaders had warned that $20 was simply too cheap to turn a profit. They were ignored. Thai Union's finance chief would later admit the price was cheap, but said the whole point was to pull in foot traffic. And the traffic came. That part worked. But people came for the cheap deal. They sat for hours. They ordered round after round. Tables stopped turning. Costs blew past anything the company could absorb. The result? An $11 million loss in a single quarter, and shortages so bad that some restaurants ran out for days. And here's the detail that tells you everything. This had happened before. Back in 2003, Red Lobster lost millions on an all-you-can-eat crab promotion when crab prices spiked. It cost the company around $3 million and cost the executive behind it her job. The company had already been burned by the word endless. And it did it again, anyway. The deal wasn't the disease, it was the symptom. The moment everyone could finally see how sick the company already was. By now, Red Lobster was hollowing out from the inside. The chain churned through 5 CEOs in 5 years. An interim boss ran the company for about a year and a half. Veteran leaders were fired or quit in waves, and the cost-cutting meant to save money, charging extra for the side salad, stripping down kitchen staff, just drove more customers out the door. Its customer count had fallen roughly 30% from where it was in 2019. In early 2024, Thai Union announced it was walking away, taking a loss of more than $500 million on the whole disaster. Red Lobster brought in a turnaround expert as its new CEO, and in May 2024, the chain filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, having already closed more than 90 restaurants. But here's the part most people miss. Red Lobster isn't gone. It came out of bankruptcy later that year under new ownership, with a new CEO who summed up the whole mess in one line. Asked whether he'd bring the permanent endless shrimp deal back, he said no. Because, in his words, he knows how to do math. And that's the real story of Red Lobster. The headlines blamed the customers. The truth was a company gutted by a real estate deal, then steered by an owner who profited from selling it, the very thing it put on the plate. The famous shrimp promotion didn't sink the ship. It just showed everyone the ship was already going down. So next time a company blames its customers for abusing a deal, ask a better question. Ask who actually made the decision, and ask who got paid. I'm building a whole series on how famous companies really fall apart. The decisions, the egos, and the math behind the headlines. If you want the real story behind the brands you grew up with, subscribe. There's a lot more coming. See you in the next one.